Welcome to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock, who is the co-founder of videosocials.net and of videointerviewpodcast.com. In every episode, Mark interviews business and organizational thought leaders who share their stories of how they inspire others by making a difference. You can find this show on videosocials.net and YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and almost any podcast platform of your choosing.
Welcome, and today my guest is also a client, Melissa Fecak. Melissa is a family law attorney, mediator, and collaborative practitioner with over 20 years of experience as a practicing attorney in New Jersey. It's exciting to have you, Melissa. How are you?
Wonderful. Thanks, Mark, for having me on.
Absolutely. So I always like to start with when I'm interviewing somebody, you're in collaborative divorce, you're a mediator, you're a divorce attorney, etc. But I think it's valuable for our audience to know, what's your story? How did you get into it, and what's the process that made you decide to do what you do?
Sure. So I came into family law on a very different path than most attorneys. My undergraduate degree is in toy design. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in Manhattan, and I studied in toy design. And the toy industry changed very dramatically the year I graduated. Two ways it changed is one, in the way that children actually play. It went from dolls and trucks and things like that more to screens and video games. Mm-hmm. So that was a dramatic change. But the other thing was the major companies had actually bought out a lot of the smaller companies. So Hasbro and Mattel bought out a lot of the Fisher Price, Tonka trucks, Kenner. So the job opportunities was very different. So when I graduated, I was like, oh, well, I could try to do something in the toy industry, but do I really want to make such a dramatic change in moving across the country or have some, not really be able to get the job I really wanted? Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, well, I need to do something different. So I did a lot of different jobs. I actually managed a small animal hospital for a couple of years. I worked in computer-based testing, educational testing services. People do the SATs, GREs. Mm-hmm. And while I was there, I actually started law school. So I was going to law school at night. I then went on to work for Prudential Insurance doing year 2000 compliance testing. Finished up there. And then when I was done, I was looking for jobs. And when I was in law school, I really thought I'm going to go into entertainment law or something a little bit more towards my background in toys. I thought that would really be a good fit. But again, when I got out, I was like, the job market's not as great in that. But there's, a lot of opportunities in family law. Growing up as a Gen X, my parents were divorced. I knew a lot of people who were divorced. So I was like, okay, well, I know about family law. I didn't really study it when I was in law school, but I kind of can, pick it up. Did family law, and now I've been doing that it's been now over 22 years.
Fantastic. And in that process, you got into collaborative law, and I know that you've also trained as a mediator, correct?
Yes.
But what is collaborative divorce, and how is it different from typical litigated divorce or mediated divorce or do-it-yourself divorce?
So I've done litigation. I've done that for the past 22 years. In fact, recently I've stopped going to court. I have attorneys that work for me that do that for me. And what I learned is that the courts really aren't equipped to handle families. Yeah. In that they just don't have the time that is necessary to really deep dive. They're not concerned as much with goals and interest of the spouses and their children. They're more concerned about what is the law, and basically how can we get them out as quickly as possible. Yeah. Because they have, so many other cases behind them. It's not because of they don't care. It's because they just don't have the facilities or the staff or the judges or ability to really help a family. Mediation and collaborative divorce are opportunities for families to resolve their differences outside of the courts. Mm-hmm. They can work things out at their pace, get the help that they need to move forward, and to divorce in a way that is really not going to be destructive to the family.
Right.
We try to be very mindful about the children, because we understand that when parents divorce, they're not divorcing their children. They're just divorcing one another. Yeah. And they have to be able to co-parent for the rest of their children's lives. And the reality is that it doesn't stop when the children turn 18 or graduate college. There are still going to be things when their children are adults that, weddings, grandchildren, all those other things that they have to be involved in, or they want to be involved in. And it's very difficult to do if you've had a very contentious divorce where you're unable to communicate with one another, where you're not able to work with one another. It just makes those situations very almost impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, so collaborative is a little different. So there's mediation, which I know really kind of deals with, shall we say, more the personal matters rather than the legal agreements per se, although yes, it's intertwined, but mediation is more helping people communicate and negotiate and build a future, is my experience, at least with working with many mediators over many years. But collaborative is a little different because it brings in potentially multiple sources, and I guess that's kind of the difference that I was looking for you to help define a little bit.
Absolutely. So mediation is a couple working with a mediator. So they're somebody who's going to facilitate a conversation, help them to negotiate, who is not there to provide them legal advice. They're completely neutral. And they may be working with their attorneys present or without their attorneys present. In the collaborative process, we do a team approach. So we actually have two collaboratively trained attorneys who are sitting beside each of the spouses. And then we bring in other people to assist. One of the great aspects, or one of the great people that we bring in, is somebody called a divorce coach. So the divorce coach is there to assist us with the emotional issues that come up during a divorce, because there's really three parts of a divorce. There's the emotional part, there's the financial part, and there's the legal part. As attorneys, we can handle the legal, and to some extent we can handle the financial, but we're really not trained or equipped to handle the emotional. So bringing in that coach to help address those emotional issues. A coach can also help to facilitate or work out parenting plans and deal with custody and children issues, because they have the skill set that is better suited to do those things. We can also bring in financial professionals. We often bring in CPAs or other financial neutrals to help us to look at budgeting plans for the spouses post-divorce, to look at the valuations of assets, planning for retirement. So we look at all those different things because, again, we're more focused on goals and interests of how this family is going to look after the divorce.
Right.
And to do that, you really need those professionals to be able to help plan for that.
Right.
It's not about, okay, you got a house, let's sell it. It's, okay, you have a house. Does it make sense right now to sell it? Does it make sense to keep it rented or have a spouse reside in it and buy the other spouse out, or any other number of things? So by having a financial person who can sit there and say, well, these are your options and this is why this might make sense or that might make sense, a spouse can make a much better decision, an educated decision about how they're going to live going forward. So the collaborative process is we are able to support spouses throughout the process, give them options. We're not, trying to put a circle into a square hole. We understand that not every family is the same. It's not going to always be the same fit. So we're trying to tailor the divorce to fit the family.
Right. So with all that, obviously that requires that you practice differently. And than your typical, litigated or even, I don't know if it's called no fault divorce, that type of thing. It's not, as you say, it's not just hashing out an agreement, from a legal perspective, it is, you're having to look a lot more holistically at the situation by having all these other people involved. But how does that work with you personally, and as far as how does your approach different than what they would typically see with just hiring a divorce attorney or just hiring a mediator, as an example?
When clients come to me, I educate them about their different options. And we talk about what they think is going to be the best fit for them. Because I am both experienced as a litigator, but also a trained mediator with experience in mediation and collaborative divorce, I can give them what's a better option for them and provide them with an education of this is why this may or may not work. Not every single couple can go through a mediated divorce or a collaborative divorce. So that's one of the things that's different about the way I work. But the other thing is we talk about, especially in the collaborative process, what's called a paradigm shift. Because when we go to law school, we're trained to think about winning at all costs. And we're trained to work in a way that is very different than we work in the collaborative. Collaborative, you really are more thought about, again, goals and interests, how to protect the family. Where in a litigated situation, it's more about how can I protect my client specifically, and how can I get them the best results. And it doesn't mean you don't get the best results in collaborative, but our approach is different. And again, because we're working in a way where we're trying to preserve relationships, we're not, burning the bridges behind us to try to get an end result. It doesn't mean you can't get the alimony you want or you can't get the asset you want, but the approach is different. And not every attorney can make that paradigm shift. So going to a litigator and looking for that kind of a support system is probably not going to work. Just like if you're looking for somebody to be, Sherman marching down towards Atlanta or to the coast, you're not going to want necessarily somebody who just does solely collaborative. And that's why I have other attorneys who work for me if they're looking for that approach, they can have that approach.
Got it. Terrific. And you kind of led off with the fact that you're educating. And I wanted to bring to light, you provide a lot of free education through content, through your website, through videos, through Facebook, YouTube, and other social media platforms. And that's kind of how we met, because, my business is videosocials.net, videointerviewpodcast.com, phoneblogger.net. It's all about having people like yourself who are the authors and presenters of content that is of value, that is of interest, that makes a difference for the people that you're putting that content out there for. And you've done a lot of that in making content and these educational pieces, short snippets, 2-3 minute videos, as an example, that you've done through video socials. And so just to take 30 seconds, what video socials is, we get together a group of typically 5 to 10 professionals that are all doing the same thing. They're all recording videos. We act as each other's audiences. We give each other feedback. We take turns recording our videos with in a social environment rather than inanimate talking to this an object called a camera, and trying to pretend like you're having a conversation with somebody. You're actually having a conversation with people that are on the screen with you, and they're giving you their perspectives as to what worked well, what something might come across differently, rephrased differently, as well as additional ideas for topics, etc. But I wanted to kind of get a feel for what is your experience of video socials, Melissa, and what have you been getting out of it?
I've been getting a great deal out of it. As you said, it's providing me the opportunity or the ability to get out there and to explain to people what are their different options. I know that a lot of times before people come to an attorney, they're going to look at the website. They're going to look if they have YouTube or other content out there. They're going to look and see if they have appeared on podcasts like this or other types of platforms, to get as much information as possible to see if that's going to be the right fit. So knowing that, to be able to get out there the information that they need to, again, make an informed decision about if they're going to proceed with a divorce, how they should go about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's extremely important. And the video socials platform makes it very easy to be able to do that. Instead of just, trying on my own to set up a camera and sit in front of my computer or whatever, and try to create those videos. It does make it much easier. It also does provide an environment where I can see other professionals. The group I'm in, we have several great mediators, so it's a wonderful way to explore and listen to them and how ideas they have about the way they practice, and they can hear from me the way I practice. And also, if I have referrals for somebody who's in New York or wherever they practice, that's a great thing too. So it's just a wonderful platform, and I really have been enjoying what I've gotten out of the video socials.
Well, terrific. And if any of our audience wants to do videos for their marketing, we invite you to come as a guest. There's no cost, there's no obligation. Just go to videosocials.net and click on the guest tab at the top of the screen. So thank you. And Melissa, we're delighted to have you. Everyone that is a member contributes to each other and contributes to the overall community of members, and we very much appreciate that. But for your prospective clients or those that are looking at, what path is going to work best for them, how could they benefit from an alternative dispute resolution in a divorce? And I'm going to put a caveat on that. My personal pet peeve is that we need to eliminate the word alternative, because resolving a conflict is so much better than fighting a conflict, in my opinion. And so collaborative, mediation, etc., I think should be first choices, or at least should be considered before, going to war, as it were, putting on the gloves and really kind of duking it out. I think should be the alternative rather than the first consideration. But how can people benefit from dispute resolution in the collaborative and or mediation side of things?
Well, you've absolutely pointed out something that I've been saying for a long time now, that litigation should always be the very last resort. Again, unfortunately for some people, that is the only option that they have in the family law process. If there's domestic violence, really they have no alternative but litigation. Absent that, for most other couples, they can benefit from going through other type of dispute resolution, such as mediation or collaborative divorce. And it's really about finding what's the right fit. For those people who can speak freely, they feel very comfortable speaking with their spouse about what basically has transpired and what they're looking for going forward. Mm-hmm. Mediation is probably a good fit, because they can express what their goals are, talk about their interests, talk about what their concerns are for their children, their assets, their finances, whatever it is. And they can probably come out with a positive resolution that's going to, again, be beneficial to both parties. It's not going to be just to one. However, a lot of times they don't feel as comfortable. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they're getting divorced, is they don't feel as comfortable speaking to their spouse. They don't feel that they can really say what they truly want to say. And those couples really benefit from the collaborative process, because they have their attorney sitting right next to them to give them that support. But then again, they also have that divorce coach who can maybe help them to just think about ways they can express how they're feeling, what they desire, without causing confrontation. And even if you have confrontation, that's okay. A lot of people think that when they go through mediation or collaborative, we're all kumbaya and we're all very happy. and it's like, well, if that was the case, you may not be getting divorced. The reality is there's going to be some anger. There's going to be hurt feelings. There's going to be times when you're going to get very agitated, and that's okay. By having the coach there, we work through how we can express those things, how we can get that out and still be able to move forward and come up with a resolution.
Fantastic. So I think there's an obvious synergy in the fact that we're speaking the same language in wanting to provide a means by which for people who are going to get divorced, and I know that you're not, and I certainly aren't. I'm not a proponent of people rushing to get divorced. That's not, we're not. None of us in this, none of you because I'm not in the field, but I serve so many that I feel akin to it. But those that are in the divorce mediation and collaborative divorce field are there to try to help people move forward in life, to resolve their conflicts, to maybe even be able to communicate with each other and be able to be in the same room at our kids' weddings and not have to hide from each other or deal with so many contentious issues that can come up afterwards. Whereas if we can learn that, okay, we disagree, but we can communicate, right? Mm-hmm. We have different values now, but we can at least respect the fact that we have that each of us has different values, and we can collaborate to be able to find a path forward to move forward. But is there anything in particular, a piece of advice that you might have for somebody who is looking to get information or is trying to figure out what is the best path forward for them? I know that you have got lots of content online that can help them, and they don't have to even contact you or anything to get access to it. So how do people get access to all this wonderful free information that you've made available?
Absolutely. So I have a Facebook page, SJ Divorce Solutions. We also have a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel I have I think now I have about 50 videos up there or close to it. I also have an ebook that I wrote several years ago. What color is your divorce parachute? And it talks about really the same things I'm talking about here, is the divorce process and approach. What I had heard from people who had maybe gone to see other attorneys before they've come to my office is they said, oh, I went in and the first thing that the attorney talked about was filing a complaint. Mm-hmm. They didn't even talk about that I had options. And many of them said, I didn't even know that mediation and collaborative existed. And so I think that it's important if somebody's thinking about divorce, and we don't just do divorce, we also do child support, child custody, relocation, anything dealing basically with the family unit, that if you're thinking you have an issue or you're thinking about a divorce, is educate yourself. Look at what's out there. There's a lot of great information. My website is a great location to go. That's sjdivorcesolutions.com. We have links to all our YouTube videos right on the website. We also have the ability that if you're looking for the book, you can get a download of our ebook. You can also read, we have a lot of blog articles on there, but there's other locations too. And I don't want to say there's not. There's, for collaborative divorce, there's the IACP's website. It's collaborativepractice.com. They have a lot of great information about collaborative practice in New Jersey. I was the president of the New Jersey Council of Collaborative Practice Groups, and we have a great website as well. It's collaboratenj.org. There's a lot of information on there. So there's a lot of information. The problem, I think, is that, again, most people don't know to look for it. And that's one of the things when I do these videos, when I appear on podcasts, I try to get out there, is that collaborative practice is a newer way to practice. It's only been around for about 25 years. It's something that not everybody is familiar with. I think mediation is much more familiar to people. They've heard about it, or they maybe even heard it talked about on TV, but collaborative practice is still kind of new. But it's something that people should really explore, because, again, it may be a great fit for them. In divorce, it's only 2% of people that actually go and have a trial.
Right.
Most people go to litigation, but only 2% actually end with a trial. That means 98% of the time you settle. My thought is, well, if you have a 98% chance of settling, enter into a process that's geared towards settlement. So
Right.
mediation and collaborative practice, they're both geared towards settlement. The collaborative practice, again, works for almost all couples. It's a great process. People get concerned because you're bringing in so many people, so they are fearful of the price. It actually tends to be less expensive than litigation. So cheaper, better options. I don't know how much more I can say about why you should consider a collaborative divorce if you're getting through a family issue.
Well, and isn't it true that it's also typically much faster?
It absolutely can be. That's one of the other beautiful things, is it can be quicker, but also it can be slower if you need it to be.
Right.
For example, a family member or somebody becomes ill. I've heard stories about in other cases where one of the spouses had cancer or had some kind of medical issue come up where they needed to take 6 months or a year away from focusing on the divorce and instead focus on their health. And then they were able to come back. In a court system, you can't say, hey, judge, guess what? I got to take care of my sick mother. She's going through some kind of therapy. I need 6 months to take away from this. They're going to say, well, then dismiss your case. You can refile. And why would you want to go through all that? Where instead in collaborative practice, you can say, I need to take 6 months to take care of mom. Can we, put a pause on everything? And it's fine. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that keeps coming up for me is that you have so many more options when it comes to mediation and collaborative than you do. Once you file, right, and you get into the court system, it's like, that's a track. It's going to take however long it's going to take. It's going, there's going to be a whole lot of discovery and people defending themselves, against basically what feels like, or you're attacking each other essentially, or your attorneys are attacking each other. And at least I'm in the New York area. In the New York area, that can take years and cost tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees, if not 100,000 or more. And I know that sounds like an incredible amount of money, but it's not unusual at all,
right?
For people to spend that kind of money. And yeah, collaborative is more than, do it yourself or just hiring a mediator and trying to keep attorneys out of it altogether. But it's nowhere near typically going to cost what a truly contentious litigated divorce is going to cost. So anyway, I just think from you're in control, right? Rather than handing your control and your power over to attorneys and a judge, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the key factors, is that in mediation and collaborative practice, you have control of the outcome. You have a say in how things are going to happen, when they're going to happen, the way things are going to work out. When you're in the court system, you're absolutely correct. You're under the court's time frame of when things are going to happen. And sometimes it may happen too fast, or sometimes it happens way too slow. One of the big problems we have right now in New Jersey is we have a judicial crisis where we have a shortage of judges. So in some counties, they've suspended doing trials. So for those couples that actually need a trial, they're suspended. And there's also a slowdown basically on a lot of other services through the courts, meaning if you needed to get something done, it might take now 6 months. Where if you need to get that same thing done in mediation or collaborative, it could be done almost right away. And that's one of the biggest problems that people are having, or they don't understand when they go through litigation, is that it's working on the court's time. It's not your time. You can't, again, tell the judge, oh, I need to get this divorce done sooner, because I have X, Y, and Z coming up. Maybe you have a job opportunity in another state. And you want to get this done ahead of time, or you have some other issues going on. You can't say, hey, judge, you got to push this through really quickly. They don't care, because they have, hundreds of other cases they have to
have a backlog.
Yeah.
And it's not for, and I think it's important, and you covered this at the beginning. It's not putting down the judges or putting down the the litigation process. It's designed to be contentious, and because it is so, it's a backlog, and there's a lot of people who are really trying to do the right thing, and judges and even attorneys that are trying to do the right thing by their clients, etc. But when you take sides rather than collaborate, you end up with what you end up with, which is something that can either go too fast or too slow. And again, you're handing your power over to others to make decisions and choices for you, rather than you being aware, knowledgeable as to what's going on, because you're being educated throughout the entire process when you are in a dispute resolution process, collaborative or mediation, versus a litigated process, which frankly it almost becomes a self-feeding machine, as it were, in the fact that the more you don't really know what's going on, the more you leave it up to the attorneys to fight your fight, the better it works out for them, because then they're not having to spend so much time explaining everything to you and not really taking into consideration the, your spouse's needs and wishes as well. Never mind the kids, right? So, and I think that's probably the best way to kind of end this, as it were, or draw this to a close. And that is that if you've got a family, if you've got kids to be involved, the court system is not designed to really take them into account, other than the legal requirements, etc. It's not really looking at the family. And you're, as you started off with, you're going to be co-parenting for the rest of your life.
Right.
As long as your kids are alive, guess what? They're going to get married. They're going to buy houses. They're going to have relationship problems. They're going to, they're going to have job changes. They're going to need your support, whether that be financial or whether it just be emotional. And if you're at odds and bickering and can't be in the same room together and can't even have a conversation with your ex-spouse, it just makes everybody's life miserable.
Yeah. I mean, the courts, they do the best they can, but again, they just don't have the time that is necessary to really deal with a lot of the children's issues, nor do they necessarily have the experience that is necessary.
Right.
When you go through a court fight for custody, you often will involve mental health professionals to do psychological evaluations, to do custody evaluations, and to really do that deep dive as to what is the situation with the children and what is the situation with each parent and their relationships with the children, and even extending back to grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all that other stuff. The courts don't have that ability to do that, so they can have other professionals do that for the couple. That gets very expensive. Those reports can cost, $10,000 and up. And also, it may be a situation where one parent has it done and the other parent doesn't like the results. So now the other parent has a separate one done. So now you've spent $25,000. You have possibly two very conflicting results. And so a judge doesn't know what to do with that, because now they have two very different opinions, and they're just going to try to make the best decision they can. But you don't know that that's really the right decision. Where instead, in a collaborative divorce, the parents are sitting there. They're making those decisions. Right. They're going to, again, have the support of the coach. If necessary, if there needs to be a child specialist to come in, child specialist can come in and work with the parents and, do that investigatory type of look at what's the situation with the children. Right. There's even, if the team believes it would be helpful, there's even an ability to maybe bring the children in. You might do that more so when the children are adult or almost adults, to kind of look at, what is this situation and how can we make this the best for everybody? But we're very mindful and thoughtful about, again, how is this family going to operate post-divorce?
Right.
because we have that ability to do that. We have that time. We can spend an entire day on working out just a holiday schedule if that's what the spouses need.
Right.
Where the judge, they have 20 other cases on their calendar for that day. They can't do that. They don't have that ability to work that out.
Right.
So we can put in the time that the couple needs. And again, it could be as much or as little. We don't, we're not, again, trying to kind of put them in a cookie cutter type of way.
Terrific. Melissa, we could go on for a long time, and I think the point's gotten across, though. People need to consider other options than litigation, and if they're in New Jersey, they certainly need to have a look at your website, have a look at your content to help explore what's going on, and there'll be links to everything that Melissa and I discussed associated with this content, whether it be on YouTube or whether it be on one of the podcast platforms, etc. Melissa, thank you so much. It's been a delight having you, both as a member of Video Socials. I've seen you record much of the content that you've created. I enjoy working with you on a regular basis, and I think that this really should help open some people's eyes to there's a lot better solutions out there than rushing to court if somebody's looking at getting divorced. But thank you so much. And did you have anything, any final words that you wanted to add in before we close up?
Mark, again, I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity. This is one of the biggest problems that collaborative divorce has, is just the ability to educate. So I really appreciate that you've allowed me to come on today, and also that you have this platform of Video Socials, which allows me to, again, create videos to get and educate people about this option.
Terrific. Well, thanks again. And stay tuned, folks, where you can learn how to subscribe to the Inspiring Business podcast, because we've had quite a few people that we've interviewed, and it's a weekly program. And I know a lot of people like Melissa that are making a difference in the world through the services and their ideas. Thank you again, Melissa, and take care, everybody.
You've been listening to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock. Your positive comments, likes, and most importantly, your sharing of this show with others is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the Inspiring Business podcast on whatever platform you prefer. You can catch prior episodes on videosocials.net and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the major podcast platforms.